Good afternoon, LBUSD community. Thank you for tuning in today. Parent University is very happy to have with us a LBUSD behavior intervention coach. His name is Mr. Michael Anderson, and he has been with our district for 30 years. 12 years he's been in this position as a behavior intervention coach. And for the past 10 years, he's been hosting Saturday parent success workshops. And that's the expertise he's going to be bringing to you today. He'll be discussing things like empathic listening, managing anger, and also the art of setting limits. So we are very pleased to bring him to you today. And without further ado, well, actually, before I hand it over, I just want to let you all know that you can use the chat feature if you have any questions for our guest speaker today, and we will be sure to feed those questions to him. We have Parent University team members monitoring that feature. So now I will hand it over to Mr. Anderson.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Mike Anderson. I've been with the district for 30 years. Over the last maybe 10 years, I've been giving the Parent Success Workshop on Saturday mornings, and I'm sure some of you have gotten those messages. What I'd like to start off with, if we could just go to the presentation, is this a little saying that I like to say: feed the positive and starve the negative. That's something that, well, first off, the subjects of this talk are taken directly from the staff training that I give, and that's a staff training that I've been giving for about 26 years. So we're trying to connect what I tell the staff and what I tell the parents so we can have a kind of a cohesive way of dealing with misbehavior. Now, feed the positive and starve the negative. Now, when you think about it, what happens when you feed something? You feed something, it gets bigger and stronger. When you starve something, it gets weaker and sometimes it will go away. So that's what we need to do with the behavior, with those challenging behaviors that we see. Okay? We need to acknowledge the positive behaviors and ignore as much of the negative behaviors as we possibly can. Okay? So we will see more positive behaviors. Those positive behaviors will come back and the negative behaviors will go away. Okay? Now, 3 things we're going to talk about today: empathic listening, managing your own anger, and the art of setting limits. Okay? First, we're going to start off with a little self-evaluation of each subject. Okay? So ask yourselves, why is it important to listen to your children? Okay? Why is it important to listen to your children? So you can find out what's going on in their lives, find out what their concerns are, and also to find out what they're willing to work for. Okay? Now, next question. Why is it sometimes hard to listen to your children? Well, lots of different reasons. Sometimes it's subject matter. Sometimes they're repetitive. Sometimes they'll say the same thing over and over and over and over again. Sometimes we don't think that what they're asking or what they're saying to us is very important. It's really important to listen to your children. I gave this course out in LA. And the first question I asked is a group of boys, a group of middle school boys. And we asked them, the first thing we asked them is, how do you want your parents to treat you when you're in trouble? And to a man, to each one, all these hands went up, and all of them said, I want them to listen to me before they yell at me. Okay? So it's very important to listen to our children. Now, what is the best way to respond to your children after you've listened to them talk about problems or concerns they're having? First off, just let it be silent. Okay? Just let what they've said resonate. and then return, talk to them. Just talk to them and just listen to them. Sometimes you don't need to respond. Every issue doesn't always necessarily need a response. Okay. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're going to check this afterward. How effective, just rate yourself from 1 to 10. How effective are you at listening to your children? Okay, just take a second to think about that. Okay, take a second to think about that. Rate yourself now and then rate yourself after we're done. Okay. Next, empathic listening. What is empathic listening? Empathic listening is active listening. When your kids are talking to you, there are 5 steps to empathic listening. Okay. First off, an active process. Well, empathic listening. What is empathic listening? An active process to discern what a child is saying. Okay. Why is it? And I'll repeat the question again. Why is it sometimes hard to listen to your children? Just sit and think about that. Okay. Why is it sometimes hard to listen to your children? You might be angry. You might be tired from the day. Okay. So, what is the 5-step approach to empathic listening? Be non-judgmental. Don't always jump in with what you think they should do. Okay? Don't always be in a rush to judge what they're saying. Okay? Wait till they're finished. Next, give undivided attention. If you're doing something else, if you're multitasking, put down the dishes. Don't try to listen while you're cooking. Give that undivided attention. And sometimes just that undivided attention is all that they need. Okay, next, listen carefully to feelings, not just facts. Why are they saying what they're saying to you? What went into why they did what they did? Okay, listen to the feelings, not just facts. Next, allow silence for reflection. Don't always jump in with your ideas or your advice. Allow silence. Once they're done talking, let them start the conversation again. Okay. Next, restate and paraphrase. Sometimes the information isn't coming out too clearly. Okay. Sometimes you need a little bit more explanation. So restate what they said to you and paraphrase what they said to you, just to get a clearer idea of what they were talking about. Okay? Now that's empathic listening. Okay? That's empathic listening. Next, we're going to talk about the emotion of anger, managing your own anger. We're going to talk about the emotion of anger, ineffective ways people express your anger, and expectations. Expectations can be a very big source of anger coming from you towards your children. Okay? Now, the emotion of anger. Anger, we have to understand that anger is a normal human emotion. It's normal to get angry. But the bigger part is how you deal with your anger. Okay? How you deal with it is the more important concern. Okay? Think of ways your children make you angry. Think of the ways your children make you angry. Okay? Next, another self-evaluation. We're going to ask ourselves a few questions. Name 3 things that children do to make you angry. They misbehave. They might lie. Okay? They disobey what you say. All right? You can come up with lots of different things that children do to make you angry. Okay? True or false? Expressing anger is emotionally healthy. Expressing anger is emotionally healthy. Taking anger and bottling it up and keeping it inside is not a good idea. It will explode at the smallest little things. So it's okay to express your anger. The bigger concern is how you express your anger. Okay? How do we express it? It's okay to be aggressive, or it's okay to be angry, but not be aggressive. Okay? Now, think of a couple of things. How did your parents express their anger? Did they express it the same way you do? And then, how do you express your anger? Okay? Think about that. Do you express your anger the way your parents did? Okay? Do you express your anger in healthy ways? All right? Now, which of the following statements would your children say about you? My parents never get angry. When my parents get angry, they yell at me. When my parents get angry, they don't talk to me. When my parents get angry, they hit me. Or when my parents get angry, they tell me why. So sit and think, which one of those applies in your home? Okay. Now we're going to rate ourselves again. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, how effective are you at managing your anger when dealing with your children's misbehavior? Okay. Give yourself a rating right now, and then give yourself a rating when we're done. All right. Ineffective ways we express our anger. We pretend that nothing is wrong. That's a way of bottling it up. And when you bottle up that anger, it just grows and festers and it'll explode at the worst times. We lose our temper. We get angry, we throw things, we get aggressive. Okay? We say things that we later regret. Okay? We say things that we later regret. Okay? We withdraw and sulk. Another way of bottling up that anger. Another way of pushing it down inside until it just explodes. And then we express our anger indirectly by taunting others. Okay? All ineffective ways that we express our anger. Okay? The emotion of anger, pretending we're not angry when we are, isn't healthy. Therefore, we must separate the emotion of anger from the behavior that is so often displayed by angry people. It's possible to be angry without being aggressive. That is a teaching moment. We can show our children that we can be angry without being aggressive. I've been on playgrounds for 30 years. And when I see a child get angry, I can tell that that's the way their parents express their anger. They use language, they use gestures, and I can see that's how this child's parent expresses their anger. Again, we're teaching 100% of the time. We're teaching 100% of the time. We don't think our kids are listening to us, but they are. Okay? They're watching every move we make. They're listening to every word we say. Okay? This is how kids express their anger. So the next time you are expressing your anger, just know that your child is watching closely and will express their anger in the same way. Okay? Expectations. Expectations are a huge part of our anger. We need to be realistic about our expectations. Think about, what are we really trying to do as parents? Are we trying to train our kids to act or behave in a certain way? Or are we trying to raise independent thinking adults? In that same vein, can we force our children to think or behave in a certain way? And when they don't think or behave in that certain way, does that spur some of our anger? We want to produce independent thinking adults who make good decisions. Okay? We want to produce independent thinking adults who make good decisions. Okay. Now, we're moving kind of quickly, so we're already at the art of setting limits. We've got to think about logical consequences. Now, when someone says consequences, we think punishments, but that's not the case. Okay? When I talk about consequences, there are positive and negative consequences. Okay? What does setting limits mean? We'll talk about that. Okay? We'll talk about using logic versus emotion when coming up with consequences, when forming consequences. We'll talk about enforcing consequences even when it's inconvenient. Okay? Even when inconvenient. So let's go ahead to our self-evaluation. Okay? The main purpose of discipline is A, to punish child for wrongdoing, to teach a child to make good decisions, to vent my anger and frustration with my child, or to exact revenge on my child for their wrongdoing. The answer is to teach my child good decision making. Okay? To teach my child good decision making through positive consequences and negative consequences. Okay? Now, what is the difference between setting a limit and issuing an ultimatum? Issuing an ultimatum sounds like clean your room or you're grounded. That's an ultimatum. To set a limit in the same situation is to say, if you clean your room, then you can go outside. Okay? I'm telling you what you need to do, and then I'm offering a positive consequence to go along with it. That's setting a limit. Okay? Clean your room or you're grounded is an ultimatum. Okay? And we'll talk about ultimatums in a little bit. Okay? What does it mean to set a limit with a child? It means offering a choice with a positive consequence. And I don't even need to, if the positive consequence is strong enough, I don't even need to get to the negative consequence. Okay? Now, some kids might need that negative consequence, but if you don't clean your room, then your friends can't come over. Okay. But if that positive consequence is motivating enough, that's all you need to do. And setting limits with positive consequences. Setting limits with positive consequences motivates that good decision. That's where we're teaching the good decision making. Okay? You make this good decision and you get rewarded. And that's what setting limits is. Okay? A logical consequence. What is a logical consequence? A logical consequence is a consequence that directly follows the child's, that proportionately follows the child's decision. And logical consequences can be positive and negative. Positive logical consequences, yes, you can go outside because your room is clean. A positive or a negative logical consequence could be, well, the student broke something, broke a window. Well, that pizza money that we use on Friday, well, that's got to go to pay for what was broken. I'm not going to ground you for 3 months for breaking a window. But that pizza money we use on Friday, we're going to use that pizza money until that window is paid off. And then we're done with it. That's what a logical consequence is. Okay. Now, why do we as parents go back to punishment instead of setting limits and issuing logical consequences? A, punishment is easier. B, when angry, frightened, or hurt, it's our first action. It's our first reaction. C, punishment works in the short term. Or D, all of the above. It's D, all of the above. We have to take some time to come up with logical consequences. Okay? Logical consequences don't just happen. We have to take some time. Okay? Now, one more self-evaluation. On a scale of 1 to 10, how effective are you at setting limits with your children? And again, we're going to rate yourself now, give yourself a number, and then when we're done, give yourself another number. All right. Now, logical consequences. Let's talk about logical consequences for a second. A logical consequence is proportionate to the negative behavior that has been displayed. And a logical consequence takes time to come up with. Don't think about it. Don't decide on it in anger. You need to take some time to think of a logical consequence. Okay? And again, the logical consequence, like the best example that I can think of is throws a ball, breaks a window. Well, that pizza money that we use on Friday nights, well, that's going to go to that logical consequence. That's going to go to pay for that broken window until it's paid off. Okay? So that's a logical consequence. Now, what does setting limits mean? Setting limits is the result of realizing that we cannot force children to display positive behavior. Okay? When we set limits, we offer a person choices, starting with the positive choice first. Starting with the positive choice first, and the positive consequence that will follow. Setting limits teaches good decision making. Kids who misbehave have terrible decision making. In the classroom, a child can think, oh, if I yell out a certain word, I can get everybody to laugh. And that's his positive consequence. That kind of thinking is kind of twisted. If I can teach my child positive choice to make positive choices at home by setting limits, by using if-then. If you do this positive thing, then you get this positive result. If I can do that all day with big things and small things, that's going to change the decision making. Now I'm building a good decision maker. Once I've built that good decision maker, I'm not going to have to worry much about behavior, because behavior is choices. Okay? Once that child understands, and once I've set my household up to issue those positive consequences for positive choices, then everything is going to be better. Everything is going to be better. Okay? Positive choices on the playground, positive choices in the classroom. Okay? Now, as I'm making these positive choices, when I'm talking to my kids, I want to stay away from a few trigger words. Now, the trigger words, there's 4 of them. Okay? No, don't, stop, and quit. Okay? No running, don't run, stop running, quit running. A lot of kids, all they hear is running, 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 running. So I want to get away from those words and give them alternatives to the negative choices. So if I give them, instead of saying no running, like my son likes to run all through my house. Okay? Not so much as he's gotten older, but when he was younger, he would run from one room to the other all day long. So instead of saying no running, Michael, no running, what I wanted to say is, Michael, you walk in the house. Instead of no yelling, Michael, inside voices. Okay? So now I'm giving him a choice. I'm giving him a choice with a positive consequence. A positive consequence, I give him a hug. That's how I change behavior. That's how you change behavior. That's the beauty of setting limits. Okay? Now, using logic when setting limits. Let's say your child does something or has done something at school, comes home, tells you, you get that phone call. Take time to cool off before deciding on a consequence. Okay? Send them away, send them upstairs, send them to their room so you can breathe. So you can manage your own anger and you can calm yourself down. Then make the decision as to what happens next. Okay? Enforcing. Now, once you've done that, we really got to remember to enforce consequences at all times, even when it's inconvenient. Now, the classic story is you're at the grocery store, you go up to the checkout counter. Where do they put the candy? Right next to the checkout. Mom, can I? Dad, can I? Mom, can I? Okay, here, just have it, just to be quiet. Okay? I've done this once, and I only had to do it once. My child was like that. Dad, can I? Dad, can I? Dad, can I? Excuse me, I'm going to take this cart, put it over to the side. I'll be back to get it. Come on with me. I had to do that one time. Was very effective. Gotta enforce consequences even when it's inconvenient. I gave this course a few years ago at Poly, and parents a couple of parents raised their hand when I got to the section and said, well, our daughter was in choir. She had really good grades, really good attendance, and they were going to Europe that summer. $1,500 trip. Well, had to pay early. The daughter fell off. She stopped going to school, stopped getting good grades, stopped having good attendance. So they told me that they went to the choir director and said, the trip that we paid for, give it to someone else because she has not earned the trip. Very expensive lesson, but a lesson that the daughter never forgot. So enforce consequences. Do not back off of consequences. Enforce consequences even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's inconvenient. Okay? That's the consistency is very, very important when setting limits, when issuing consequences, both positive and negative. Stick to your guns. And don't make promises that you cannot keep. Okay? If you say you're going to do something, if they do something positive, make sure you do it. And on the flip side, always enforce consequences, negative consequences. If you've issued them, enforce those negative consequences even when it's inconvenient. Okay? So consistency is very important when setting limits, be they logical consequences or not. Okay? All right. So, you rated yourself at the beginning for empathic listening. You rated yourself during the self-evaluation. Okay? Give yourself another rating. Give yourself another rating. Okay? You rated yourself on managing your own anger. Okay? Rate yourself again. Give yourself another number. And then you rated yourself at the beginning of setting limits. Okay, we're at the end of setting limits. We moved a little bit faster than I thought. So we moved a little bit faster. So rate yourself again for setting limits. Okay. All right. So we're at the end of our presentation. Do we have any questions?
Hello, Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
We do have a few.
Okay.
So the first one, what do you do, or I guess they're asking for suggestions. What do you do when your student lies? And particularly, this was in the context of attending a Zoom class or their class via Zoom.
Yeah,
suggestions on what they should do.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you had asked that question because I'm kind of in charge of attendance at Beach. We check and see. We have a screen, and we check and see who's Zooming, who's not. I would go with the advice that I would give to the parent is to form a relationship with the teachers. You've got to form a very strong relationship with the teachers, even more so now than before. Because whenever I get that question, I tell them to communicate with the teachers, maybe even on a daily basis. So you'll know what's going on. Okay. Also, there's a way through Canvas that you can check yourself. Okay. Exactly how to do that, I'm not sure. Go into Canvas and connect your account, your parent account, with your student account. Okay. And that, I think that's the best way, is communication with the teacher and connecting your account with your student's account. Okay.
Thank you for that. Another one we have, do you have any anger management resources specifically for a teenager?
Anger management for the parent of a teenager or for the teenager? Because I don't for the teenager themselves.
Okay.
No, I do not.
I think that may be what they were referring to.
Yeah.
Okay. So we may ask that family maybe to reach out to their school counselor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and see if it's specific to a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Another one we have. It's a little bit longer.
Oh, sure.
What happens when you have one parent that sets limits and consequences while the other parent allows the child to not follow the rules and set consequences and set limits?
Oh, it's interesting. I get that question when I was doing my live in-person workshops. I got that question all of the time. Now, there's a couple of questions. Well, no. What I would do, because many times when you try to sit down and talk face to face with that parent, the parent who does not set limits, then that can start a conflict. With my wife and my kids, what I did was I set limits. I did all the work, and I did not directly address her. What I did was I let her see how effective my setting limits was. I let her see how the kids behaved when I was there versus when I was not. Okay? So what I did was I used all the stuff. I set the limits and used the if-then and all that good stuff. And slowly over time, she saw how effective it was. And actually, I think her mother-in-law said a couple times, well, they don't act like this with Michael. They only act like this with you. So over time, just me setting limits, managing my own anger, using my empathic listening, she saw how effective it was. And over time, again, it's not going to be right away, but over time, she saw how effective it was. And that's kind of how I did it. And that would be my advice, is you go by example. Okay, go by example.
Okay, thank you. And then we have another one. They have a question and then they gave an example. So what is a reasonable amount of time to allow a child to follow through with the if-then positive, like playing outside, before introducing the idea of a negative reinforcement? For example, friends can't come over. And then they gave this scenario that they're challenged with at home. For example, they have a 5-year-old that thinks it's funny to get his younger brother to misbehave, like run in the house, throw stuff. Similarly, if the 5-year-old misbehaves, yells in the house versus using a quiet voice, if it makes his brother laugh, he will continue the behavior because he's receiving the desired response. So it sounds like they're kind of struggling with the two children.
Yeah. What I would do, when I gave my example of cleaning your room, I left out one important part. If you clean your room within 30 minutes, then you can go outside. And walk away, close the door. Come back in that 30 minutes, and if it's done, if it's clean, and you guys have already discussed what clean means, if it's clean, then you go outside. So I always give a time limit. And what I've got to do as a parent is I've got to stick to that time limit. If they're not done in 30 minutes, then I'm not going to give them another 30 minutes. Okay. Now, consequently, what you need to do, let's go with the 5-year-old example. I've got to offer positive consequences that are motivating enough that the laugh isn't enough of a reward. So, because if you think about it, getting the kid to laugh by yelling whatever he yells, that's the positive consequence. So I've got to figure out a different positive consequence. Okay? So if the 5-year-old is trying to get his little brother to laugh, I've got to think of a better consequence for that, both for the 5-year-old and for the one who laughs. Okay? So for the one who laughs, I need to think of a positive consequence for not laughing. Okay? And then for the 5-year-old, I've got to think of something better, Scooby-Doo pencil or whatever it is, for him to not make his brother laugh. Okay? So I need to reward the positive choice more so than the negative choice. Do you kind of understand?
Well, we don't know exactly which parent was asking that question.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're going to have to hope that given the presentation around limits and the scenario that you gave, hopefully we'll. I think that was good guidance.
Okay.
Some good examples. So we have another. This parent's asking, what should I do if my child does good at school but not at home?
Again, I'm going to go back to positive reinforcers. So he gets a positive reinforcer for doing well at school, a positive grade. Well, I need to connect that positive reinforcer to home. So there should be daily, weekly, monthly rewards for doing well at home just as well as at school. Okay? So I don't know what the behavior is at home, but if it's negative, well, then there's a positive side to that behavior. So if you display a positive behavior, you get this. If you display a positive behavior at home, you get this every day. You get this every week. You get this every month. And maybe I keep a point total. So if you display positive behaviors every day, you get 5 points a day. And if you get 20 points for the week, then you get this. And when I say you get this, I mean time alone with parent. A walk to the park. You get extra reading time. Okay? Or extra screen time for doing something positive at home. And it needs to be consistent. So when that kid wakes up, opens his eyes in the morning, he knows, oh, you know what? I can earn extra time tonight. So the child is always working towards something positive, 24/7. He's always working for something positive. Okay?
Good, thank you. And this might be similar to the question that you just answered, but this mother or father is asking, my kid does not care about limits. What can I do?
Limits? What?
And I unfortunately, I don't know if they mean they don't care about if you set limits.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good question. They're going to care about something. You just haven't found it yet. Okay. So you're going to have to try lots of different things. My child doesn't care about limits. Well, do they care about earning money? Do they care about earning screen time? Do they care about earning more time with their phone or on their phone? I've got to find out and that goes to empathic listening to what's really going on, listening to what they're saying and observing them and seeing what they really care about. Because there's something that they really care about. Okay? So once I find that out, your child is going to start caring about limits. Okay? So you've got to find out what they're willing to work for, what they're willing to change their behavior for. And it might just be free time. It might just be time in their room. It might just be a pair of Jordans. Okay? But you've got to figure out, sit back and listen and watch and observe what your children will work for. And I guarantee you, once you find that out, they'll care about limits.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like there's not a quick fix. There's going to be time invested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and moving on to the next question. What do you do if your child has a very strong will and can't seem to get away from the constant discipline? Or maybe needs constant discipline?
Mm-hmm. You need to change the discipline system in the household. Meaning, I would guess that it's negative discipline, meaning punishment. So instead of saying, you did this wrong, here's your punishment. Hey, why don't you do this way, and this is what you're going to earn? I hear this question lots. Okay, it's a lot of punishment. It's a lot of punishment for wrongdoing. So what I need to do is figure out what the opposite of the negative behavior that is earning this discipline and offer motivating positive consequences for making the right choice as opposed to making the wrong choice. It's going to be a change in how the house is how the house is run, really. And it's more positive, rewards based than punitive, punishment based. Okay?
Thank you. And then we have another one. I think it might be our last.
Okay.
Please, if somebody still has questions, to put that into the chat feature for us. But Mr. Anderson, they're asking, my son used to do good at school, but not anymore. And then they have two questions. What can I do? And then the question is, do you think he might be depressed?
It's always a possibility. It's always a possibility. Depression is always a possibility. But as they get older, you're going to parent them just a tad bit differently. I would guess that you're probably using a more punitive system at home. And one of the things that I always suggest is sitting down at the dinner table, everyone, and saying, this isn't working. And one of the things that I've done, both when I was coaching football and with kids on my campus, is we sit down, we look at each other in the face, and I start talking, and I ask them, what do you need from me to be successful? And sometimes it's, well, you yell too much, you're too negative, okay. And I take all of that in, I write it all down, and then I look back at them and I say, here's what I need from you. Okay. Now, the child's not being successful at school. The pandemic can be a part of that. But we also need to think about what do you need from me for you to be successful? Okay. What do you need from me? Just write it down. Write down what you need from me. You need me to be more quiet? Do you need need me to be more of a cheerleader? All of that. Just sit down and talk and take responsibility as the parent and ask what you need from me. Okay.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. I can just say as a parent, I have an adult parent, but just listening to you, I felt inspired to even rethink my parenting. That was very impactful. I think that we've gotten through all the questions that we weren't able to get to in the chat feature, but we do want to.
Well, I think a little voice in my ear says there's one more coming, one more question
there
coming.
is one more coming. Okay, yeah, there is a little bit of delay between our Zoom meeting and the YouTube. So, I'm sure that'll be fed to me quickly, and we'll have that question, or it may be whispered in your ear.
I'm going to whisper it into his ear. How do you differentiate between positive reinforcement and bribery?
That's a great question. It's only bribery if you give it first. Okay. You have to make it contingent upon good behavior. Then it's a reward. If I give it first before anything is done, then it's bribery. If it's as a result of a positive choice or a positive action, then that's a positive consequence. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'm going to switch to the video real quick to say goodbye to our community. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So again, I just want to thank Mr. Anderson for joining us on this Parent University workshop today. I'm hoping that everyone was impactfully affected as I was, and I'm sure our team was. If you have any questions that you think of, please email them to parentuniversity@lbschools.net. Again, parentuniversity@lbschools.net, and we will get back to you. We also want to let you know that this workshop will be available in Spanish, in Khmer, and English on our YouTube channel within a few days. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday.